Welcome to the Personal Finance and Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriela. On this podcast, we talk all things money and finances. Learning how to manage our money and make it grow is a skill that can be learned, that we can get better at. In our environments, money is kind of like a taboo topic. So on this podcast, let us have the conversations. Let us dig deep into how does this really work. We're going to have guests and learn from each other. I encourage you to listen and enjoy the podcast. Remember, you are the CEO of your money. No one else can manage the money for you. Welcome to today's episode. And today we're talking about closing out the monthly budget. This episode is coming out towards the end of January. And I thought I'd bring it out in advance, a few days before the month ends, so that it gives us some time to think and process. Maybe you can try to apply a few of these tips this month, or you can prepare to start applying them in the month of February. And the purpose of this episode is to help anyone who has been looking for the answer to this question. If you've experienced having written down all your income, having written down all your expenses, and then you get to a point and you have all the numbers, and you're like, what's the point of all this? I've written my income, I've written my expenses, so what? What then? And then it all feels like it doesn't make sense. And then you just stop. Having a process of closing out the month puts meaning to the numbers, makes the process of recording reflect what is happening in your real life. It reflects if you're making progress towards your goals and actionable ways to adjust your lifestyle in order to attain what you're working towards. So, let's get into it. So the question is, what is a monthly budget closeout? This is the process that you go through to have a look at, like step back and have a full picture view. When we are recording on a day-to-day basis, what we earn, what we spend, this is not able to give you the full picture. In the whole month, how much did you spend on your groceries? In the whole month, how much did you spend on the children? How much did you spend on social activities? Day-to-day writing, day-to-day tracking in an app or an Excel sheet does not give you these answers. So this process of closing out the month is what gives you these answers. So I'm going to start by listing out the steps of how you can do this, and then I'll explain to you the purpose, the importance. I've hinted on the importance, but I'm going to list them out point by point, why this process is important. So I have 7 steps, 7 mini steps that you can take to have the budget closeout. The first one is write down your starting balance in cash and your starting balance in the account. This is a step that you ideally should do on the first day of the month, or the first day that you're starting, you're tracking. How much do you have on your bank accounts? How much do you have in cash? You count it. This is like liquidity. If you use a lot of mobile money, how much do you have on your mobile money? This is your starting balance. Then the second step is to create categories for your variable spending. Do this in a way that makes sense for you. If you spend money on the children, but it keeps changing. Today you're buying toys, tomorrow you're buying books, the next day you're buying clothes, have a category for children. If you have social plans, you're meeting out with friends, you're having family get-togethers, have a category for social. If you have transport, if you're using public means, maybe you move from place to place. If you have a car, maybe you have fuel. If you have food at the office, you spend on buying breakfast, you spend on buying lunch, have an item for work meals. Then you can also have an item for clothes, like clothes, shoes, accessories, things like that. You can also have an item for a hobby that you have. If you crochet, if you read books, you can also have a category for personal growth. If you spend money on classes, on books. So the categories are not, you can also have a category for entertainment, going out for movies, going for band night. So the point of this step is to have categories for the variables that applies to your life. Now, why am I not mentioning the fixed? The fixed are usually not things that you spend on like every day, because once you pay rent, you've paid rent. This only makes sense maybe if you have like a variable source of income and you want to slowly set aside money for the rent, and maybe you'd want to track how much have I set aside to go towards rent at home. So step 2 is have categories for your money. The third step is to track your money. Find a place to write it. Find an app to put it in. Maybe an Excel sheet. So for example, if you're writing it on paper, just write. You write the date, you have your paper, you have your notebook, you write the date, you write the category, you write the amount. If you're buying food, if you've gone to the market and you've bought onions, tomatoes, rice, instead of writing all those items, you can sum them up and then you have groceries. This also makes it a little less overwhelming and more manageable. Then if you've gone and maybe if you want to separate the food from consumables, things like toilet paper, washing soap, bathing soap, you can also pick them out and have them as household items or consumables and have a figure. At the end of the day, if you've spent this much on transport, add it up and just write a figure. If you're using an app, because there's also the option of having the app, you will open the app and then make categories in the app that apply to you. Usually there are categories that are pre-existing. So what you have to do is edit those categories so that they match what you want. Once you've edited, at the time of tracking, when you're making a new entry, just put the category, add the amount. They sometimes have the option for description. You can put a description. So now the third step is to keep doing this through every day. Just set aside, what I usually do, I spend about 5 minutes or 10 at the end of the day and I record how the day went. And then on a weekly basis, I just check to confirm that I've not forgotten anything. Then at the end of the month, this is simpler because I've been doing a little every day, I've been doing a little every week. So when I'm doing the whole thing at the end of the month, just text me like 20, maximum 30, because I'm preparing for the next month as well. So that's the third step. Track your income, track your expenses throughout the month. Now, the next step is where we now get into the actual closing out of the month. This is when you look at the totals in each of these categories throughout the month. So you will see how much have I spent on groceries. Maybe it's 500, maybe it's 700, maybe it's, depending on what it is, how much have I spent on social events. This is it. How much have I spent on entertainment? How much have I spent on the children? You will start to see the lump sum numbers. Now, reviewing these numbers can serve different purposes. When you look at the totals, it's going to give you, first of all, it's going to show you how much you actually spend. You know, sometimes when you're starting this journey, you're only estimating like, I think I spend this much. So this step gives you a figure to work with. It may be higher than you expected, it may be lower than you expected. The second purpose that this serves, looking at the figures of each category, is that you can use this information to prepare for the next month. So when you're making the budget for the next month, when you're making the February budget, you can now say, okay, so in January I spent this much in food, I spent this much in going out. Then you make the February budget that will be a bit more realistic. Now, every month is not the same. And when you start, it will take you about 4 months to get the hang of it. To say, okay, my expenses in this category range from this to this. Because remember, in 1 month, you will have events. For example, in January, I had an introduction in Bara. So I had to travel, which doesn't happen every month. In February, it's my birthday, so I will have other events. In March, I have a friend's birthday, which will come up with other events. So the months come with different expenses. Maybe in a certain month, you want to buy clothes. Maybe in another month, if you want to take the children out, or you have a family get together. So the variables are never fixed. Now, starting to see a trend is also another advantage of tracking your variables and looking out, zooming out to see how much you spend each month. The other benefit that comes with looking at the total of the variables in each category is that you start to check if you're making progress towards your goals. If at the start of the year you said, okay, by December I want to have maybe 10 million towards starting my next side hustle. If you're like, I'm going to use 2024 to prepare for the business that I'm going to start for 2025, because you always ask yourself, I really want to start a business, but I seem to never have money. Not because I don't make money, but I actually make the money, but I just don't know where it goes. It just doesn't seem to add up to become a lump sum that I can use to start the business that I want to. When you zoom out, you will start to see, okay, in January, how much money did I put aside in the category of saving? When you look at it from month to month, not only in your spending, but also in your saving, if also on a savings goal that you have, also on an investment goal that you have. The same applies for if you're saving up money to buy land. If you say in the next 2 years, I want to have enough money to buy land, and you break it down on a month-to-month basis, at the end of the month, you can look at this summary and say, okay, January, I hit the target. I saved 200K. I saved 300K towards my goal. Then you can say, okay, in February, let me make the same target. Or you can say in February, let me try and improve. You make a decision for the next month based on your assessment of the category. This applies to paying down debt. If you have debts and you want to reduce them, you can also see in this month, how much did I pay towards my debts? Are they reducing? And then you can, now, the next advantage of looking out at the variables is that you start to see that, okay, maybe I spend a lot on social plans and I can reduce a little on the social plans so that I'm able to reduce my debts, because this is a goal that is important to me. When you zoom out, you're able to make decisions that will slowly give you progress in the direction that you want to go. That's the 5th step. Review the variables, categories that you made, the totals of the month. Now the next one is to make a budget, make an intention for the month ahead. After you've seen these numbers, the next step in closing out your monthly budget is to set the next month's budget. Then the final step is to check if you've accounted for all the money, to check if you've actually recorded all the money that came in, all the money that came out. So you do this by, you remember the starting balance that you wrote in step number 1? That amount of money that you had in your cash, that you had in your account or in your mobile money, you add that total, you add it to the income that you've captured throughout the month. This is also a category that you've tracked. So you get the starting balance, you add the income, and then you subtract all your expenses. That answer, that closing balance, when you go to your account and see, I have this much on my account, I have this much in cash, I have this much in mobile money, the answer that you have in physical money that you can actually access should be the same that you have on the paper. I've not always been doing this, but the time that I learned about this, it suddenly made so much sense. It's what I have on paper, what I have in my app, in my Excel sheet, now relates to what I have in real life in cash. So I can actually trust the numbers that I am writing down. Every now and then I forget things and then it doesn't tally. And it took me some time. It used to frustrate me, that feeling of I want them to be exactly the same. And then I'd feel bad. But sometimes it's not worth stressing over like little errors. The ideal is for it to be the same. But we are humans and we forget, and it's okay and it's normal. For them not to balance doesn't mean that you failed, no. The process of closing out the budget has still served its purpose, and it is still important. Those are some of the the benefits that come with closing out the month. In this example, where we've gone through this process, end of January, it will actually give you a chance to start fresh the next month in February. You're like, okay, that was January. Now we have a new page. Let us start tracking for February. So along the way, if you feel like you're going off track, because each month you're closing it out, you can readjust and say, okay, let me get back on the path that I wanted. The other interesting thing is that this keeps your goals top of mind, because each month you're interacting with them. You've not written them down and forgotten about them. It keeps you thinking about the goals. Yeah, and in the start it may take a little longer as you find your rhythm, but once it clicks, it is so fast. You're like, it is much faster, and it gives you peace of mind. The anxiety that you have, not knowing if am I making progress towards my goals, am I moving around in circles, it gives you so much peace when you're doing this. Now that is all I have to share about this. I really do hope that you give it a try. It may not be my exact version. You can go onto YouTube, you can go onto podcasts, find other sources that you feel might make sense. They might actually explain it better than I have, because I'm just using my few examples, what I've experienced, and it's really a valuable skill. It may take some time to get the hang of it, but once you do, it is simpler and it gives you peace of mind. So as we end this episode, let me go through quickly the steps that you can take to have a monthly budget closeout. The first 3 steps are kind of done throughout the month, and then the last steps are done at the end. So step 1, record your starting balance, cash at hand, cash in account. Step 2, make categories for your variable spending that applies to you. Step 3, track all your income and your expenses in your place of preference. And then the 4th step is to summarize and have the totals for all the variable spending throughout the month. Step 5 is to review them. Review the totals of spending in variable categories and assess if how you spent matches the goals that you're trying to attain. And then the step 6 is to set intentions for the next month, make the budget. Step 7 is to reconcile and check if you've been able to track all the money. If what you have in the budget, if what you have on paper matches what you have in real life. This will give you more confidence to trust the process. Thank you for listening to this episode, and we shall chat on the next one. Have a nice day. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you found value in it. Please subscribe to this podcast on whichever platform you're listening to it on, so that the next time we have new episodes, you're able to be notified. Share with a friend, share with a loved one, so that you can start these conversations about money. At the end of the day, you are the CEO of your money. No one else can manage the money for you.